Thank you everyone for attending this second webinar, the Clean Energy for Africa webinar series. My name is Mohammed Al-Haj from the Clean Energy for Africa initiative. I'm a renewable energy engineer and researcher. And I know these are quite tough times everyone is going through. The best thing, of course, is to stay at home. So that's why webinars work best for any kind of awareness campaigns. So I hope everyone is staying at home and staying healthy and safe. So today's webinar is about clean energy entrepreneurship in emerging markets. We have two very great and interesting, very experienced professionals who will be shedding more light on this topic, very interesting topic. So our first speaker is Mrs. Regina. Regina Mead holds a degree in economics from Bryant University and began her career as a financial analyst with a Fortune 50 company. As a financial analyst, she was responsible for analyzing and buying, the buying and spending patterns of high-volume clients. In this capacity, she supplies statistical data on current market trends and assists her employer in forecasting future purchases based on their clients' buying patterns. Regina has extensive experience in building companies as a serial entrepreneur for the past 25 years, having built a multi-million-dollar construction company within the first 2 years of its inception. The company became a game changer for the region and set precedent in establishing green roofing systems in the high-end roofing market. Recently, she became a partner in a large environmental engineering company located in Asia and is looking forward in assisting her partners in bringing much needed resources to the disenfranchised through sustainable development and job creation. Recently, Regina was invited to participate in the WastetoEnergy Symposium in Khartoum, Sudan, at the request of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa and the African Union, as well as the Symposium on Structural Governance and Transformation in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. She was also the commencement speaker for a college in Monrovia, Liberia, where she has offered to sponsor 6 young adults to continue their college studies. Regina has also lectured on public-private partnerships for the World Bank Climate Investment Fund and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, and has also been nominated for the ITAC Industry, Trade and Advisory Committee as a recipient of the EWAC Artemis Award, which was presented in Greece. She also holds certificates in project management, conflict resolution, and lead, as well as being a past member of the US Green Building Council and Project Management Institute. So, Regina, the floor is yours now.
Fantastic. Okay, so today I'm going to present on clean energy, and we're going to talk about how it's impacting emerging markets. We're going to look at 2 case studies, and I think these case studies are they're both located in Africa, and both of them involve energy, because we believe that energy is the hallmark of the building of a great foundation, because everyone needs energy. Hospitals need energy, educational institutions, and you know, homes need energy, so children can study, so they can go off into college and do great and wonderful things. They're our future, and so we really push energy in the countries in which we are located, and vaccinations and immunizations, all kinds of wonderful things happen with energy. So the first case study we're going to talk about is a pay-as-you-go solar off-grid standalone project. We're going to look at the opportunities, the challenges, what the solutions were, and of course the outcome. A little too fast. So let's take a look at our first case study and the client profile. They were referred to us by the private sector. They were already business owners, and I don't know why this is doing this. Hold on a second, it's moving a little too fast. They had several business ideas that they submitted to us. They submitted to us about 3 or 4 opportunities for business, what they wanted to do. And what we did with them is we drilled down to the low-hanging fruit, and that low-hanging fruit was the project that had the greater probability of being financed, because we specialize in project financing. And so our focus is on how to bring this project to fruition through the capitalization or the raising of financing for it. And so we noticed that they already had a pilot program for roof solar, standalone roofing solar. They had 4 years of 4 years of pro forma statements, which are critically important in your project. These are future forecasts of what you feel the initial investment to be and how you're going to pay it back, and the revenue that you're going to bring, and of course the revenue, the profit, and or the loss. And these financials are extremely important. And they also had proof of concept, because they had 150 homes that were all participating and of course paying their monthly fee. So 150 homes were already equipped with standalone solar roof panels. They had 100% participation, which is fantastic. And we saw the same thing in Brazil when we were doing sustainable housing in the Mi Casa Mi Vida, that the poor and the disenfranchised, when they were brought into, when they were not given houses, when they were approved for loans for these very small homes, that their default was almost like 0.001%. And so we realized over the course of the years that when you give individuals, or you assist individuals in realizing their dreams of a home or energy or what have you, the propensity of them meeting the monthly obligation increases, because now they're a part of the society. They're no longer on the fringe. They now have something that is valuable. And that in Brazil was a home. And of course, with a home comes safety and security. And the same thing with this solar energy pay-as-you-go opportunity. They had solid financials for the past 18 months, and they had a three phases that they were going to scale up to. And the ultimate platform, or the ceiling, was 54,000 homes. Phase 1, of course, was 1,500 homes. Phase 2 was 9,000 homes. And they had an opportunity for individuals in the community, which they were already training, to participate in this community-wide pay-as-you-go project. It was really amazing to see their business model, because their business model involved the entire community, so that the community had buy-in and not just one individual. The negative, or the challenges in this country, was of course civil unrest. It was only a pilot project. The investor's client that we had presented our findings, because we had put together all of the documentation for the opportunity, and put it in such a format that investors prefer, so that it would be rated. And the investor was really interested in it, but he said, you know, this is a country that has had previous civil unrest. We had a large client that moved out. The project is too small for us, you know, because we work a lot with institutional investors, but we work on the client side. So an institutional investor is 25 million and up. And so the project didn't meet that criteria, because it was only a $1 million project. But we found a way around it, and we were able to come back to their objection and say, no, don't you have this, 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 and this? And they said, yes, we do. And so we were able to position the project with the investor, and he gave us the condition, which is really what we wanted. and of course the community is a very agrarian or agricultural community. So we were advocating for them. We convinced the potential investor that the project was worthy. And we proved that the companies were coming back. We had to do a lot of research, and we had to prove to them that the companies were coming back into this Central African country that is landlocked. We provided this, and we can't give you the name of the company and tell you a lot about it because we sign NDAs. And we take them very seriously. So I'm just going to kind of give you their history and a little background, but I can't tell you everything. So please bear with me. We provided them with services in a financial accountability and finance. Now, why is that important? Because when you have an investor investing in your project, you have to remember that their goal is to make their money back with interest. They are risk averse. And so the key to this opportunity and the key to this coming together, or like I say, marriage, divorce is very expensive. And so they're looking at the risk. And we had to prove to them that this company was able to be accountable for the financing. And so we put into place some procedures and processes whereby they were accountable to us because we were positioning them for investment. So we became their CFOs and their COOs. We became their management team. We reviewed and analyzed the project, and we projected growth. We saw that there was an opportunity of growth. And now with the AFTA trade agreement, there's really an opportunity of growth. We wrote up the business case, and then we walked the project through the project lifecycle to bankability. And that's very important because they had a great idea. They had a pilot program, but they didn't know how to scale it up. And so that's where our expertise came in. So we provided financial best practices. We've been benchmarking the process. We've had them every month provide us with financials, and they have been consistent in providing us with financial accountability by sending us their profit and loss statement every single month. And they do not spend money or do anything unless they contacted us. And it's not that we're trying to control them, we're trying to position them for financial accountability, because that's what they're going to have to do with the investor. So we negotiated, and then we structured the financing on the client's behalf. And we're really excited about this because this is the first small project that we have done. Most of our projects are up in the hundreds of millions and even the billions, but we're really excited about this because it's in Africa, it's for the poor and disenfranchised, and it's exciting to see the hope that is in their eyes. I've worked and visited. I used to work in Libya and worked throughout Africa, and I'm really excited to see the changes that are occurring. But my passion, our passion, is to bring energy and to help the poor and the disenfranchised. So their project has been very successful. Let's look at the next project. This is case study number 2, and it deals with waste to energy. And the African Union has a mandate to deal with the waste problems on the continent of Africa. And they put together a list of procedures and policies and what have you. And so waste to energy is one of their solutions. And so this client was referred to us by the public sector. The individual was a professor with no previous business experience. Brilliant person. Loved working with them. Very, very smart. They didn't have any business experience, and so we had to assist them in taking their knowledge base, which is massive in this area, and then translating that into the business world. They didn't have any information on the project, and they didn't have any proof of concept. So we were starting way back, but we figured, what, we can do this. This is a great opportunity because it's going to take garbage and it's going to employ a lot of people. It's going to empty these landfills, and we're going to have energy. We wrote a LOI, which is a letter of intent, because we are a company that specializes in project finance. We have a lot of access to governments and ministers and what have you. And so when we write a letter, because of our relationships with investment institutions, people read our letters, and then they're able to get property. The government will then give them a term as far as donating land, because we're on the team to arrange the financing. And we also speak on behalf of our clients to government. We go to the meetings, we sit and tell them, what the plan is, what investors are looking for. And we usually have someone who expresses an interest prior to us taking on the project. So these municipalities could purchase the energy. The local government was very interested in donating the land, and we had locals that were interested in employment opportunities, which is great, because now you've got the local community involved. They have jobs, and now they have a little more disposable income. They can put children through schools, and this is the exciting part. They have some extra money, to add different things into their diet and to send their children to school instead of out in the field. So this was a great opportunity, because it was very labor intensive as far as employment opportunities. The challenge was they had no prior business experience. They didn't have a summary of the project. They quit their job prior to the project taking off, and they had no safety net. And we always tell people, especially new startups, listen, guys, you have a job, keep the job and work double time. While the business is rising, when it gets to a certain point where it can sustain not only your income, but your employees' income, because you need employees to assist you. And you've got to put your employees first, and you get paid last. I know that sounds a little crazy, but if you don't have employees, and you don't pay your employees, you're not going to have a business. So we tell people, listen, keep your day job until, especially small businesses, keep your day job until the business grows. And then once the business grows and you can sustain a reasonable income, that's when you quit your day job. And they had no safety net, so they quit their job without a safety net. We did provide them management advisory services. We wrote the business case, compiled all the necessary documents for investors. We walked the project from inception, and this was really raw. It was just an idea, through to bankability. We even, because of our relations in the energy sector and throughout the world, we have relations in energy and hospitals, various infrastructure relationships, professionals that we have worked with in the past. And so we were able to consult energy professionals on their behalf and to assist them as advisors. We acted as their CFO, so they could understand what fiscal and financial responsibility was, and to be accountable. And we also started to put procedures and processes in place in anticipation of their growth, because we knew that the governments in Africa really wanted waste to energy opportunities, because they had so much waste that they were putting in landfills, and these landfills were full. The project failed, and so we're going to discuss the reasons why. Why was one company successful over the other company? And this is what I like to tell individuals: your success is not totally dependent on how hard you work, but on how smart you work. And I believe the reason why these two companies differ is that the one hired us, retained us, and they listened to everything we told them to do. The other one retained us, but didn't quite listen. And so one brought us in to assist them in achieving their goals. Both of them brought us in to assist them in achieving their goals. And the company that was more successful did exactly what we asked them to do. So let's look at the case study one. This was the pay-as-you-go solar project. And this throughout Eastern Africa, Kenya and Uganda. This is Tanzania. This is exploding. And we're seeing even in mini grids that the off takers are industrial clusters, because the grid, which is of course the National Electric Company, sometimes doesn't have the connect points far out into other parts outside of the urban areas. And so it may take years for them to connect to the grid. Or the base load, they can't handle the additional electricity to the base load, and what happens is their transformers end up exploding. You know, I'm not an engineer, but I've spent some time looking at configurations, because that's what we do, and talking to the engineers. And so it's really critical, that all of the configuration schematics are in place, but standalone solar energy in Africa, being so full of irradiation, is the way to go for many areas of a rural electrification. One of the largest investment banks in the world, who we have a relationship with, was very interested in this project, is interested in this project, and we got to go ahead on it on Monday, on Tuesday actually, which is really exciting. We're really excited about it. Because this is our first $1 million project. So, it can be done. Like I said, we deal with big projects, big energy, ports, airports, hospitals, ecotourism, but this is exciting because this is giving the poor and disenfranchised opportunities that the rest of the world has. So we were also asked to present this opportunity to a 300 impact investment funds, and that's again because of our relationships. A large public investors governmental arm also expressed an interest. Once we got beyond phase one, which was the next 1,500, so we had to scale to 1,500, which we just got the go ahead from, to now they're going to invest in the project to help us phase two, to scale to 9,000 and then to 56,000 homes. A new vendor also approached us to work with us because they liked what we were doing. And because of our working with them, we were able to negotiate their and structure what we were willing to pay for their equipment, and we were able to save $300,000. And that's the power of negotiation and structuring finance. Our case number two, we were able to discuss the opportunity with two public financing vehicles, Power Africa and the African Development Bank. Unfortunately, paperwork was not submitted in a timely fashion, and although they waited for it, we were in discussions with the African Development Bank. We were in discussions with Power Africa, which is through USAID. They know me by name because I had a nice little conversation with them about what they're doing in Africa. But, it's okay. They're investing in large projects, but they're not looking at small projects, which is patently wrong. But that's just my opinion. But we did have a discussion with them on the two projects, and the African Development Bank was definitely interested in it, but we couldn't get the paperwork. We couldn't get the things that we needed in a timely fashion. And so it was definitely a lack of participation on their behalf. And that's the end of my presentation. I guess I would wrap it up this way. If you're going to go into raising finance, if you have a project that you think is a very good project, you have to have three important things. You have to have financials, which are pro forma financials, which forecast out what you think the profit or loss and the maintenance of the debt will be at a reasonable interest rate. And the good thing about is because of the African trade bloc, which is now 1.3 billion people, the rates have come down for Africa. So you're now looking at 10, 12, 20% from institutional investors. You're looking at, they're going to consider risk. So about maybe 5 to 8% at the high. The other thing that you're going to need is a good, strong business case. If you don't have a business case, then you need to have an executive summary. And that executive summary has to tell someone, or a thesis, what the project is, or a concept paper. What the project is, why you think the project is going to be successful. And the third thing is you have to have, you have to be able to be malleable, be able to move with the wind as things change, and not take anything, it's not personal, it's just business. And when you look at things from a totally business perspective, and when people start asking you for pushing back, and I tell people, don't walk away from the table. They're telling you what they don't want. And we've got to convince them. It's our job as your negotiators to persuade them, like we did with this huge investment bank. Yeah, they left, but people are coming back in, and here are the incentives for you to come back in. And so you have to be able to sit at the table, remove the emotion, and structure the deal, because they want you to convince them that your project has value. If you get up and walk away from the table, then you were never invested in the game. And so that's what I want to leave you with. Thanks so much for allowing me to present to you.
Thank you very much, Regina. All right, thank you very much, Regina. Very interesting presentation. Honestly, I honestly learned a lot of things, although it was a short, concise presentation, but a lot of interesting facts. And I think it's always good to listen to real life experiences, because you learn a lot from them, more than just theoretical discussions. And the final remarks as well that you made about the main requirements for a good project in terms of financial and having a good business case, also I believe is extremely useful. So thank you very much for this presentation. So now we move into our second presenter today, Mr. Hafis Bello. Hafis is an experienced manager, a trained urban planner, and an advocate of sustainable development. He obtained his BSc and MBA finance degrees from Nigeria, PGD Islamic Finance from IIBI UK, and MSc in Urban Design and Architecture from Hamad bin Khalifa University in Qatar, which is where I was, and that's where we met. He is concluding his PhD thesis on sustainable maintenance management, and has written articles on sustainability issues and financial inclusion. Hafis founded Leeds NonInterest Finance company in Nigeria in April 2013. The company offers investment and advisory services to small and medium-scale enterprises in parts of West Africa. Prior to that, he was the head of business development for Remita ePayment, microfinance bank section. He also worked as an associate planner with the FOC Consulting, where he coordinated research and development on different company projects. So Hafis, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Clean Energy for Africa. I must also first comment on the presentation, beautiful presentation actually by Regina. I also learned a lot. Yes, they deal with big projects. Interestingly, on the other side, we deal with SMEs, the day-to-day businesses, and young entrepreneurs who are trying to come up the ladder. So basically, I'll take us through what we're doing in parts of Africa. The investment opportunity in Africa, Regina has really done a good job on this in terms of the potentials in Africa. So basically, we have a very fast-growing middle class, no doubt. Of course, that brings up with huge opportunities in terms of market potentials and the good purchasing power for businesses. So basically, it aligns to the fact that like most businesses now moving to Africa, with the fact that, the population is there and a growing middle class, which again is a very good an essential requirement for any business development. Of course, again, another key essential part is we're actually fast tracking many of the years that the developed worlds have been able to go through by leveraging on the ICT facilities in terms of mobile phone penetration. The investment opportunity again in Africa, with the use of smartphones, we now have, of course, the likes of M-Pesa we have in Kenya. We have several, technological advancement now in bill payments and healthcare in terms of energy. Basically, what I try to do with this is to provide a kind of background as to say that for young entrepreneurs, the land is quite open, and it's limitless in terms of which sectors you can go into. For instance, there are abundant solar capabilities which can be harnessed for energy provision, for farming households. In fact, I'm very impressed with what is happening now in Kenya and Uganda. There are projects going on, for farm solar energy, for irrigation processes for farms across some parts of East Africa. So these are projects, these are initiatives we should leverage upon as we move on. So basically, what are we doing at Leeds Non-Interest Finance? Having said about the potentials in Africa, thinking about it for quite some time, in 2013, I had to resign, as Mohammed rightly put. I had to resign to set up what we're doing now in Africa. So basically, the company started officially in April 2013, mainly to empower the financially excluded, actually, and to serve the untapped SME market. Why did we set up Leeds? I remember then, just to share our experience with our young guys, other entrepreneurs who are coming up the ladder. I remember when I resigned actually from a well-paying job, as Regina rightly said, don't resign until you're sure where you're going to, and be sure, it's gonna be a good deal before you actually turn up the letters. So we almost did the same thing. So, but in 2013, it's still like everybody was, why did you need to resign? But then the future was that many people were given CVs because we have huge population of youth who don't have jobs. So again, we need to start from somewhere and of course build it. So in another 20 years, we can have a business of reference, and that was what we did. April 2013, I resigned and I set up the company. What we set up as Leeds itself, we didn't set up to actually set up a financial institution. We were like, okay, let's go into agriculture, which is what we did. So basically, I set up a fish farm with our colleague, with our friends. What we did was to first, what can we do differently in the market? So we understood we had to study the market for some years, actually. So we saw that the market basically was selling what we call grow out fishes. That means that your fish stay in your pond till 6 to 12 months. And after 12 months, you start begging, the market to buy it. And of course, the market controls the prices. So you're begging the market. So what we did was to change the paradigm and begin to look at selling fishes within 3 to 4 months. So what that means is that how do we now go about it? We got an oven, a latest technology that was able to use coal and all that with gas technology to dry the fishes and of course package them and sell to the market. And that reminds me like it happened yesterday, because when I resigned, I actually just finished my MBA program. So my MD was like, no, this won't happen, because everybody was like, when you finish the MBA program, you were looking for additional position. But actually, I turned in my resignation letters. So it was quite a surprise, but I said, I need to test what I've learned in the institution. So basically, we started with the fast forward, the fish farm. But during the MBA days, I've been able to have, of course, friends in different sectors from energy to banking and all that. So basically, I personally had to be taking the fishes to these guys to sell to them. Now the dynamics is that, I'm saying this so that our young guys can actually learn how we started from like ground zero. So I had to take this fish to them, and immediately somebody eats it, is like, oh, I want more. And of course, within the office, you have more people who want to taste it and they want to buy it because, of course, it's fresh. We make sure that everything is well catered for in terms of the hygiene, in terms of the spices and all that. So that's one part. The other part is that as the demand was growing, we couldn't meet up the market needs anymore. So automatically, we had to go to other farms to get fishes from them. Now, this is how we move into financial services. So when we were getting the fish from these individuals, we realized that, okay, we get the fish from them. They don't have the oven. We have to bring to our oven. Okay, we said this must stop. We bought the oven for them and rented it to them as services. Now, the next phase is that even with that production, we couldn't meet the demand. Okay, guys, you know what we will do? We'll be providing fish feeds financing for you, but we won't give you the cash, you know, because of course it can go to other uses. So we pay the fish feed guys to produce more feeds so that you can fast track production of the fishes. So a fish farmer who was doing a 300 number of fishes before, or a 1,000 number of fishes, or a 2,000, were able to double or even triple their production within the same span. Of course, the market was buoyant. The market was quite, you know, in fact, we were still crashing the market, because at that time I was looking at we should target just the banks. I mean, friends in banks and all that. But those friends were beginning to order for their families, for their occasions and all that. So it went, you know, beyond. I mean, it gave a very good impression that the market is great. So again, we had to now focus. We reviewed what our business processes were. We just felt, look, these guys have been in the fish business for years. Let's give them, they have the competitive advantage while we focus on the finances for these fish farmers. So basically, that was how we dovetail into financial services. So it wasn't like we set up as a financial institution. So basically, again, why I said that is I will still show our young guys to begin to understand the role of being dynamic in your business decision. You need to change when the market requires you to change. So again, we went into SMEs. After that, as part of it, we have ICT services and agriculture. Basically, we saw a need in the market where there was, of course, increasing need. As of 2013, there were still many, I mean, you know, increasing desire or demand for ICT services, even still now. So what we're doing basically in the ICT services then was to train young people on how to use computers, you know, basic computer services, talked about Microsoft Word and all that. So again, the agriculture part, which was basically in the fish farming. And that made us to expand it into the SME, as I've mentioned. We started to finance the fish farms so that they can now fully produce the fish for us. And we buy, of course, we were providing the marketing services. You know, until now, where we have a full unit in charge of the marketing services, so where we can focus on, you know, other operations. So again, we have the logistics and transport services, through which we provide cars for individuals who want to do the likes of Uber and all that. Some of them seems to be more comfortable with that. It's okay. Our job is to provide for them. So what are our milestones? Basically, what I've just mentioned. In 2013 April, we established our fish farm. In January 2014, now something happened between April 2013 and January 2014. To put it in perspective, when we set up the fish farm, we had our failure period, I would say. There was a day I went to the pond myself to actually feed the fishes, you know, before we started. Actually, that's what fast track our giving out that part to people who have expertise in it. And so we focus on financing. So I fed the fish myself in the morning, traveled to another state in Nigeria. I mean, we have many states. And before I even arrived there, I got a call from the farm that half of the pond is dead. Wow. You know, that wasn't a good news for somebody who just resigned and you're trying to put some resources together. So, but again, it turned out to be blessings, you know, as it is. So my younger one, immediate younger sister, she was working in the Ministry of Fisheries in Nigeria. So I had to call her, what do we do? She said, oh, you need to do this and all that. Surprisingly, that was what the solution we provided was actually what we took to Ghana when we were discussing with some of the fish farmers there, our partners there. So we were like, they had issues with the fish farm, and we said, okay, no problem, we'll come to provide the solution to you. So, okay, so what I'm saying is that sometimes you see a problem, don't be carried away. That problem in itself is another business opportunity for you if you can harness it. So that's number one. With that, we got a link. In 2014, we set up our ICT center, which is in Lagos, Nigeria. Actually, is in Yaba, our major office now. Then after that, we moved into in February 2015, we got a reference from Ghana for Republic of Benin. What happened in Ghana was that we supplied what we call fish pelletizing machine for them. Actually, it's for one of the farms in Wa region. Perhaps we have people who are listening from Ghana. So in Wa region, we have the farm. So we're there. It's perhaps one of the largest farms there. So we provided the fish pelletizing machine. We also imported it, but we had to train the staff on how to use it. So they gave us a reference to Republic of Benin. And in June 2015, we established officially the SME, financing officially. What we're doing before then was just to give the fish farms funds to provide feed for their farms. But then in 2015, we had to make it a full-fledged financial segment. Then, of course, later period in 2018, we established the car unit. So basically, at the beginning, this was what we have. I just showed us that this was how we moved. Now we are not into this fully now, but it showed us how we moved, when we're fully into agriculture to what we're doing today. What are our core strengths, basically, in a very quick one? We have a great team, teamwork abilities. I must say, our team is great. We got some of the best young minds who are really working hard to ensure that things work. They believe in what we're doing. And that's really critical. And I will share how that is important to our young entrepreneurs. Second part is you need to identify, we were able to identify and serve a niche market. And that market was that these fish farmers were not looked at. Perhaps some of the banks were looking the way of Regina, which is wonderful, by the way. But then we still need people who can focus to these low-hanging, individuals who need just little funds to get things going. Some of them with as low as $1,000, they're able to do very fine in the market. Of course, we leverage on IT tools. Many of our company processes were IT-driven. For example, our approval processes, we didn't have the finance processes, for example, from application to approval. The only time we need to visit you is when we're sure that you finish the processes of application, and we need to see what you're doing, of course, before we give any actual remittance of fund. But we don't even give cash, by the way. We give to the producers. For example, a fish farm, you need feed. We don't give cash to you. We pay to the feed producer. For a poultry, we pay to the poultry feed supplier. If you need, for example, the poultry pen, for instance, we send funds to the closest producer in that area. So basically, that helps you to get the equipment, and of course, you continue your business. So because we understand, of course, there could be a trust challenge, so we make sure that is controlled. Of course, we have references across the board and several other channels, layers of confirmation before we approve any project. So the other part is dynamic operations. Yes, I mentioned that we didn't start as a financial institution. We actually started as a fish farm. And again, that added to our core understanding of the business process. If we didn't start as an operational team, we may not understand what farmers are saying or what many of these guys are saying. But because we have gone through that curve ourselves, we're able to advise them and tell them this is how it is, and even show them where the market is going, perhaps in another 5 years or even 12 to 24 months. So we, of course, constant learning from different environments. Perhaps that's why I'm in KL now. We keep learning from our various environments to learn not just in the classroom, but the culture, the technology, and the way of doing things. So again, that helps us with do what we call, of course, knowledge transfer and technology transfer, as the case may be. And of course, that gives us ability to network. And of course, we have a gradual market engagement approach. Our statistics, basically, we're a very young organization. We have few guys, 11 great guys who are working. We have 2 of them in IT. We have 3 in logistics. Management has 3, and we have field officers who are about 2. So basically, these guys are working, to ensure that we meet up these demands in the market. So far, what have we done? We've provided non-interest financing for 52 businesses. Why non-interest finance is really a niche market is that what we have today, they are mainly interest-driven finances. While interest-driven system is not the issue, the problem, it's an issue in its own, but that's not the argument now. The main concern now is that because banks just give out funds, they don't even care what these guys do with these funds. So some of these young guys, they also make mistake. We call it honest mistake. They didn't go out to actually be fraudulent, but because they don't even understand what the market is, like Regina said. If you don't understand what the market is about, then you just take the fund, and of course, the collateral is what they are looking for. So what we do differently is this. We listen to whoever is seeking for financing from us, and we advise them this is what we can do, because it's a win-win. When you make profit, we also make profit, and we want to make profit, so we need to advise you properly. So basically, that's the advantage of the non-interest financing. On the other part, we consulted for fish farms in Ghana and Republic of Benin, and of course created those jobs you've seen. What our clients say about us, basically, we have different stories there, from restaurant owner to fish farmer. Now we've moved beyond farming issues. So we now, anybody who is qualified for financing, of course, within the SME categories, we're able to finance them. A quick one I want to show us, just this video of our clients. So just a short one. It doesn't take too much of our time. I'm not sure if the sound is very clear, but this is one of our poultry clients. He was a principal. He had over 25 years experience.
Hafis, we can't hear what he's saying. If you can just comment on what he's explaining.
Okay. Okay, basically, we provided fund. We actually bought the pen there. You are seeing there. We bought the pen. We paid for the poultry. We paid for the chicken. So basically, we go to that later then. So going to young entrepreneurs, having said that, these are the advice I have for my colleagues, as I would say, because we're all in it. Basically, is the fact that the courage has to be there. There are individuals that is what we call the heirs, the finishers, the dreamers, the starters, and sustainers. So there are people who just like, oh, they heard what is happening, they don't do anything about it. There are dreamers, there are starters actually, but starting itself is not it's like breaking the ice. Yes, it's good, but then you need to be able to sustain and of course finish it. So on our part, I would say we're managing the sustaining part, because sustaining is really a long-term period, if you ask me. But starting is really a big one. I want to encourage us to start. So what I've written here is that entrepreneurs, basically, you have to be vision-driven. And it's not about just profit making. It's about you need to provide a solution to the market. So you need to focus on building long-term relationship. It's not about short-term profit. So for our young entrepreneurs, as the slide permits, our job is to guide as to how to go about setting up what you're doing. Learn from the customer's needs and wants. Most times it will lead you to a niche market. Most times when we listen, just like Regina mentioned, if you listen clearly to your customers, most times they will lead you to your future business. And this is how it played out in Leeds, for instance. We didn't start to be a finance team. We just were looking for fish to meet our market. And because we didn't have this fish, they told us, you know what, you want fish, we will produce fish for you, but we don't have the money. Okay, fine. We gave them the money. They were giving us the fish. And because we don't even have expertise that much in fish, we had to just, consider that this is not our competitive advantage. So we moved to our competitive advantage because we have guys in financial services, expertise, and myself, I also have MBA finance. So basically, we're able to leverage on that. The next part, basically still on our young entrepreneurs, you need to find a niche idea and develop it. Most times the market, even if you have an old idea of what somebody is doing, you need to have an extra edge. What are you doing? To satisfy the market, not repeating what others are doing. Nobody pays you for repeating what others are doing, by the way. So you need to be prepared to learn, unlearn, and relearn. This is very important. Entrepreneurs are not people who just stick to one idea and feel, without this idea and this is the best thing. No, there are always best and better things. The more you look, the less you see, as a paradox says. So leverage on IT facilities, of course, that goes without saying. We're listening to ourselves now. from different parts of the world, leveraging on IT. So I would say we should use that to our advantage. What we're doing in Leeds basically is that from our accounting processes to our loan approval processes to our customer checking processes and all that, they are all IT driven. So I don't have to spend much resources to be reminding clients or something. We have an app that does that. And the surprising thing, most of these apps are free. Surprisingly, actually. So people do not pay you for for discussing a problem. They actually pay you for profiling a solution. Choose the right team and do not be afraid of making mistakes. Yes, mistakes are part of the deal. So your big area, as mentioned by Potter's 5 forces, also Potter's 5 forces. We have the customers, we have the competitors, we have the suppliers, we have the government agencies, we have the changing technology. So these are areas you need to map out, as a young entrepreneur. Who are my customers? What's my target market? My competitors, who are they? My suppliers. So you need to be sure, because of course there's what we call forward and backward integration in terms of supplies. So for government agencies, of course, registration and all that, I will leave that to question and answer session, so we have more time to discuss. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Hafis. Very interesting presentation, and I really like the fact that we had a good excuse me, had a good contrast here between your topic, which was looking at small and medium enterprise, whereas Regina's presentation was looking at large finance. So I think it was an interesting mix. So thank you so much for interesting presentation with regard to the experience that your personal experience, which I think is always good for. Okay, whoa, sorry, seems I've done something wrong. All right, so yeah, so now I think we can have a Q&A session. I have actually a ton of questions. I've been writing them down during this presentation, but perhaps you can open the floor for the audience if anyone has any questions. Just please turn on your mic and camera if you want, and you can ask the question that you want. You want to ask the question, Hafis?
No, I mean, I'm like, finally the video is working.
Oh, the webcam worked. Okay. All right, no worries.
Yeah, at least, so I guess you know who is talking. Yeah.
Okay, so everyone, like, you could also ask your question in the chat if you would like, and I can read it out to the speakers.
Hello, did you hear me? Yes, okay. So hello, Hafis and Regina. Thank you for your presentations. It's really informative, and it's very nice to hear from about different experiences in Africa. So I am Zulfa Rashid, and I would like to start by asking Regina, actually, because I'm interested in solar. Although that every experience is adding to my knowledge, but I would like to ask about the solar project, because I've been before in Ethiopia with UNESCO, and we were working in a project that is related to providing the energy to these small houses, the triangle houses in the rural areas. And during that project, I've been the only engineer, and the team was formed with the environmentalists. So I was suggesting that they go for solar because of many benefits that we know, like the standalone systems and how can they provide them like that. But my question is on the crowdsourcing in the financial side. Did you consider going to financing these kind of projects from crowdsourcing? And maybe this question could be applied also to Hafis, the project you have been working in. Did you also consider to go for crowdsourcing? So this is the question. Thank you.
Hi, Ms. Rashid. No, we did not look at crowdsourcing. And the reason being is because of our relationships in the financial market. It was the project being only at $1 million was initially a concern of ours, but we know that impact investors and corporations are actually looking to deploy funds for small projects as part of their responsibilities and part of their initiatives. And so we were able to find a niche, as Hafis has said. We found a niche in the financial markets that would accept projects that are under institutional investors' requirements, which are 25 million. So we did not approach crowdfunding, although we know that that is a platform that is available. But we would have if we did not receive the positive response that that the investors, if they had pushed back and said we were not interested at all, and we had tried several other opportunities or other doors, we would have then looked at the crowd sourcing. So we were going through our networks initially to give them a right of refusal, and then we would have done crowdfunding.
Hafis, do you have any comment on that, the issue of crowdfunding?
Yeah, what I would say is it's one of the sources we actually identify as well, but we're yet to. In fact, it's a Q3 program. It's actually what is being used even within several quarters of finance, and especially for SMEs. I'm aware of what's happening in Indonesia. I'm aware of. I mean, we have a housing project now as we speak, being crowdfunded in Indonesia, if you are aware. So I believe what Zulfa is doing is a great project, and for crowdsourcing it is a good idea. She only needs to identify the right platform that can actually meet the need. But as Regina rightly said, there is need to properly structure out, what you want to do so that it's even, because most times the crowdsourcing, it's just like any financial system. It has to be like a proof of concept. You need to have a clear plan, or perhaps if Zulfa wants to be more specific as to areas she's looking at.
All right, thank you very much, Hafis and Regina. Do you have any other questions from Prof. Abdurrahim or Musaddaq? If you guys have any remarks, I think Musaddaq wants to say something.
Hi there, can you hear me, guys? Yep. Yeah, thank you very much for both Regina and Hafis for those really nice presentations. And we learn a lot actually from their expertise in terms of the financing of those projects. And I was actually wondering in terms of the involvement of the governments, the local authorities or governments in those projects. How much involvement were these local authorities? How closely were they working with the local authorities, and if they've had any challenges in terms of having these projects moving forward, especially in Africa, of course. That could be a challenge at times of running these sort of projects. And as you know, of course, the policies and stuff like that, they might be a hindrance rather than empowering those kinds of projects, especially in terms of clean energy. So it'll be interesting to know, or learn a little bit more in that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you for asking the question. We have not yet had a government officials or the import officials or the tax officials push back on the project. We were trying to ask them to reduce the tariffs, but that's the taxes they need in order to provide services to the populations, and we understand that. We also have thought about contingencies if, you know, it gets to port these panels and somebody decides that they want us to help them. And so we've considered that variance of plus or minus, you know, 2%, which is very high. We're hoping that we don't have that pushback, but it's a very real scenario. We haven't had it yet, but then again, they haven't imported the panels yet because we're at the financing stage, the structuring. Another country that we are engaged in, we are working at the ministerial level, and they are asking us to please come and help them do some energy infrastructure projects, that they would give us the key to the province. And so we have the backing of the government from the presidential down into the local governments. But we're very respectful of the social customs and mores of the indigenous people. And so when we work from that level, we work to obtain buy-in not only from the higher executive levels, but the day-to-day, as Hafis said, SMEs and smaller businesses, because it is their country, their province, and their opportunity, whereby we're just guests. And so our position has always been in these countries not to leave a footprint, and we encourage the investors to do the same. So we're working right now with a company in Africa whereby we told the investors, you know, the indigenous company has to own the majority stake. And so they're fine with that. And what that's done is not only assisted the local company, but also the mayor and the, you know, provincial government is very pleased about that, because they don't have to worry about the patriation of large amounts of money leaving the country, that it actually stays in the country and recycles through. So, you know, every country has their challenges, but we try to work with the various governmental entities in order to let them know that we're just guests in your country. We're just trying to facilitate this solution to this problem. Like Hafis said, you have a solution to a problem, you find a niche, and then work within the confines of that, of the system that is in place. So we don't try to change anything. We try to work within the confines.
All right, thank you very much, Regina. Actually, I have a question for you regarding pay-as-you-go. As you said, it's one of the most popular now business models for scaling small-scale solar systems in East Africa. So my question is, what is the best way for evaluating the credit worthiness of the rural population when you want to implement this kind of models, pay-as-you-go? Like, you may have a customer, a potential client, but he may not have a bank account, maybe just a phone on like a mobile phone, so with very little financial data. So what do investors look for here? Or let's put the question another way. As an entrepreneur, what can you look for when assessing the credit worthiness of your potential customers to see whether this model will be sustainable for your business? Pay-as-you-go specifically, I mean.
Hi, I'm sorry, I had a little technical difficulty there. Okay, so what we've been doing is we work through the indigenous companies, and we don't go in there and do anything without having an indigenous partner. And we work on the client side, which is wonderful. So the indigenous company is the one that has identified the opportunity. They're the business owners and the project developers. And so they put together a model, a financial model, based upon their projections, what the individual has to earn every month, whether they're going to be paying $1 or $2 a month for the service. They do use mobile banking, which is, is a plus. They also have meters on the homes with these pay-as-you-go scheme. And so they have engineers and they have service providers, and rural electrification the villages are very far apart. They're nowhere near the grid. So these people are within the community. And so now it's no longer a one-off, it's a community effort. And that's what's I'm so fascinated. I'm personally fascinated by it, because the community has now bought in to the opportunity. And so they encourage each other or police each other to continue to remit their payments every month, and they assist each other in it. And so it's really how you set up your business model. And this business model is based upon the community and buy-in of the community, but the project owner owns the business that's going to maintain the equipment, do service checks on the equipment, collect the monthly payments, and what have you. Now, I know there is a secondary business, and Hafis said it on so many different occasions. He started out doing this, and this is what he branched out into, is that there is an opportunity, once they become accustomed to paying mobile payments for services, that now they can loan them money. And I like it without interest, Hafis. I agree with you. I think usury is, you don't want my opinion, I'm just going to stay professional. So, but it just leverages the future of your children by living on credit. But you didn't hear it from me. But by providing them, and I like your idea, Hafis, of no interest loans, in order to, maybe they needed something to buy books for the month for their children, so they could, or uniforms, or pay school fees. So, I'm going to recommend that. But this is a secondary business that can come behind this, because we're seeing it across Eastern Africa, Mohammed, that this is what some of the other pay-as-you-go, but they're charging interest. But I'm learning here also, and Hafis, I like your idea. So I hope I answered your question, Mohammed. And okay.
All right, thank you very much, Regina.
Okay, just a quick one. Thank you, Regina. Those are very good input, actually, I must say. I just want to add to what Regina has said on the question from Musa. You see, basically, the government now in Africa, basically, I think there is a huge support for deployment of solar system. I'm aware of many countries that are making very good inroads, facilitating. Even now, there are no tariffs on importations or even production of solar panels within the continent. Hopefully, when we have AFTA, the continent-wide trade agreement, where there is easy flow of goods, just like we have in ECOWAS and perhaps other parts, we can begin to leverage more. So that's one part. On the other question on pay-as-you-go, I'm aware of a particular solution provider also in parts of Africa that what they do basically is that they allow the users to recharge just like electricity. So you pay like you go and reload the phone. So you actually buy the credit, for the solar system. So the solution is already even in other countries I've seen outside Africa. So basically what they do is that you're charged. But the African story, why it's different is that, for example, let's say you're being sold, the item is sold for, say for instance, $500. Say for instance, of course it's lower than that. So the person will be paying at a go, the first part, he or she pays maybe $50 or $100 or something, and they spread the remaining over the 12 months period. So at the end of the 12-month period, he or she takes ownership of that device, and most clients prefer that rather than the one-off payment, because it also gives them a 12 months warranty, before at least they are sure, even if the equipment breaks down, they still get the hearing of the service provider. Of course, we don't want service providers who act in such a way. We want devices that can last even, a few more years. So, I mean, just to add to that, so we have it currently happening in parts of Africa. I'm aware of inroads in East Africa, and I know Nigeria is doing some things. I know Ghana is doing something. Rwanda is doing something. Kenya and Uganda doing great, for those aspects. So, and I'm sure Sudan, although I've not studied more about Sudan, perhaps my Arabic I need to improve, to know what exactly they are doing. But I've seen some of your posts, Muhammad, and I think it's quite impressive also.
Thank you very much, Hafis. I think Sudan is quite behind actually, mainly due to a lot of factors, but a lot of economic factors actually that hinder the growth of the renewable energy industry. But anyway, I have a question for you, Hafis. Actually, I think it's perhaps it will relate to a lot of entrepreneurs who are in your position, which is the balance between entrepreneurship and education, higher education specifically. So as an entrepreneur, I don't know, do you really need anything more than a bachelor's degree? In your case, why did you do an MBA and now you're doing a PhD? Is it related to what your business, or is it just your own personal interest?
Oh, finally, I get to answer this question. I've been asked well, basically it's purely personal. If you ask me, for what we have as formal education today, with due respect to our teachers, actually, I'm not sure they are really still in touch with what is happening in the world out there, I must say. But of course, there are still, that's why some of us still need to combine both. So by the time we're perhaps in the classroom, we're able to give a wider view to issues, I think, so going clearly to answer your question, entrepreneurs do not need, long chain of degrees, if you ask me. You only need to be able to study your environment, have, just like Regina said, you need to be smart enough to understand what do you need in this environment and provide solutions to those needs. Trust me, the impact of education in those, yes, education is important, I must say, but you said after first degree. First degree provides you a very good platform for networking, for communication, for confidence building, understanding your ideas, bouncing your idea off, several of your friends and all that. So I think that's a very good base. MBA is a good deal, which I did, and that really helped me also, I must say. Of course, when I finished my MBA, I actually set up my company straight, so, and that was a surprise because I was, a well-paying job, but then again, it's not about our individual selves. It's about, I have many CVs, I couldn't even know what to do with it, So I'm like, in another 5-10 years, if I continue to have these CVs, then even maybe my children will also have their own CVs. So who would help? So we need young people to actually go out there and try and not be afraid of making mistakes. And that's why we're willing to use opportunities like this. Hopefully we have more in the future, where more young people in emerging economies would be able to leverage on the mistake. Yes, we made mistake, and that's why I was clear about it. I wasn't saying that it was like smooth. No, we made mistake, and we had to quickly learn from that, and of course leverage on even. In fact, we actually made more profit from that mistake than because again that the deal I said we got in Ghana and Republic of Benin. So I think integrity and all that will play a lot. So education is important, but on my part, since you asked about Hafis, it's purely a desire because I have interest for research and academia. So I feel we can do so much more, training more young people to join that list. And of course, that's why we're having this conversation. Imagine if I stay in the country just with BSc, of course, I would know many things, except that perhaps I still need more networking to, So and that's so it's an opportunity to. So it's beyond my own education. If you ask me, it's not a 4 classroom thing. It's about more of networking, more of knowing what other people are doing, learn from other environment, and understand, like culture, language, interaction, interacting with people from different divide, and that's a huge leverage, if you ask me, in this 21st century, to be able to communicate across boundaries. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for this.
Can I say something?
Please go ahead.
And about the education. I have a bachelor's degree. I think it's great. I think everyone on this call is PhD. My daughter is getting her PhD at MIT, but life is going to teach you a lot. And life is the best teacher. And I mentor a lot of millennials and young people. And what I tell them is, when you're getting ready to start a business, and quite a few of them are, as I said, don't try and be the smartest person in the room. Hire the smartest people and pay them well. And so, and I've always said to my employees, I don't know everything, but I know you do. And so that's why I hired you. And I take their advice. I listen to their advice, and especially the young people, because they're the future. And then the other thing that I've learned, which has humbled me greatly, is when you hire the best and the brightest, or even who you think has great potential that may not have a degree, but has life lessons or just has the hunger to succeed, those young individuals and older individuals are the ones that you want to get behind and mentor to help them fulfill their dreams, their hope. And that is one of the reasons why we are so excited about doing this project, doing energy projects in Africa, because when we look at the young people and the hopes and dreams that they have for their country, it's like, it just makes you want to just, go, wow, this is what it is all about. So, having advanced degrees, engineers need them, business people need them, some don't. It's all a personal preference. But I always, with the businesses that I've owned, I always told people, when I get to the level that I'm no longer able to run this company and produce a profit, I'll hire the shirts, which are the MBAs, and they'll do it, but I'll still own it. So I congratulate all of you who have advanced degrees. Send me your resume.
Great. So I guess you have some vacancies now in your firm. All right.
What did you say?
Regina, did you hear me? Because I don't know if your mic is muted.
I'm sorry. No, I didn't hear you. What did you say?
I said I'm guessing you have some vacancies now in your firm.
Always vacancies for the people that want to do great and amazing things. So
That's great. We can announce
yeah.
for that then in our page, because we get a lot of messages on a lot of our followers looking for internships or jobs. So so it's good to know we could reach out to you in this case. Okay, so thank you guys for this remarks about the education was really useful. Do we have any other questions? I'm thinking it's almost an hour and a half now, so perhaps we could have one or two questions, then we can wrap up.
If no one will ask, yeah, I'd like to ask one more question. Since we are talking about entrepreneurship in Africa, and yeah, so what I would like to know is, how can we know the market is now ready to accept newcomers, youngcomers with not that much experience in the energy market, in the solar market, for example, but they want to start a new business as an entrepreneurs. So how can we know? How can we look at the market, which we are saying that it's now emerging? How can we know that it's the step now to go to the market, to start a company, to go for the solar business? Is there something that we can help us to start, to know what is the road? Thank you.
Hafis, perhaps you want to give some comments on this first, then Regina, or?
Okay. First of all, entrepreneurship, one thing you need to know, and I think Regina also mentioned that slightly, there's no perfect time. In fact, if you ask me in Africa, just like I think there's a famous statement that the last best time to do anything great was 500 years ago. The next best time is now. You know, so philosophy. So I would advise Zulfa, please, one thing is this: anytime you start the market, you will still run through that curve, the curve of mistake, the curve of need to learn, unlearn and relearn, just like I said. So either ways, you're just postponing I won't call it what people call it, you know. So it's better to just start. Of course, I'm not saying one should take an uninformed decision, no. So you need to do your findings, you need to do your homework. The market is there, no doubt. Many players are coming up, and in fact, coming up very fast. If you look at the FDI we have across Africa last year, you know, just for 2019 alone, combines about last 10 years, if you look at the statistics. So more people are coming in, more investments are coming in, and most of these investments are in energy and IT sector in terms of solar and renewable energies. So I would advise that please start like yesterday. So, but of course, luckily you still have a few hours to today. So I only use that to tell you that the time to start is now. You know, I may just assume there's no better time. You know, the governments are looking for this solution across board. If you can't, that's why we have a global space. If you can't market in a particular community, you can talk to Regina, you can talk to myself. I think Regina is already, so I should be helping a lot also. Of course, Muhammad, Dr. Muhammad is doing a lot.
Can I answer? Hafis, are you done now? Because you broke up. Okay. Sis, what I think the best step, let me give you some practical steps. Take your idea, write it down. So write your roadmap, a precis, a concept paper, send it to myself, send it to Hafis. Let us take a look at it. Let us rate it for you. And then once we've taken a look at it and we've sent it back to you, He's going to give you, Hafis is going to tell you what an SME is how to look at it from a small micro enterprise. He's going to tell you the opportunities that are available in Ethiopia or wherever you want to do this project. What I'm going to look at it is from a purely financial perspective. And I'm going to tell you what the probability of this being an investable project, and whether this project has the capability to go from inception through the project life cycle, which I know you are familiar with, because I think you are an engineer, if I'm correct, to the bankability phase. And once you get an opinion from him, who is in Africa, who has a business in Africa, and then you get an opinion from me, who has worked in Africa with indigenous companies and has dealt with the financial community, then we will put our heads together and see how we can customize Hafis and myself working with you in order to bring this project to fruition. Because it's imperative that we, as I'm an African American and you guys are my brothers and sisters, that we assist the people of Africa in realizing their dreams and going to the next level and bringing forth solutions for Africa. And I told the African Union when I was at their symposium on transformation and structural change that Africans will solve Africa's problems. They don't need China, they don't need America, they need, or Europe, they need a hand up, not a handout. Okay, and so let us see what you're trying to do by putting together your pre-sys, and then we, Hafis and I, will work with you to assist you to bringing this opportunity to fruition. Am I right, Hafis, or am I just being impetuous at this point? It's okay. Okay.
Great, Regina. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Regina and Hafiz. I think this is something I can start with. Thank you. I'll do that.
So there you go, Zulfa. This is a free business consultation from 2 global experts. So a big opportunity, and I advise you not to miss it.
Sure, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you have any other questions or any final remarks before we close. I see my friend Anwar Dafa'Allah from the Sudanese Researchers Initiative. He just joined. Okay, I was going to ask if he had some comments, but I think he was disconnected. But do you have any other final questions or remarks? All right, so
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say thank you for inviting me to participate in this this presentation. I think I've learned something, and that's what it's all about, networking and learning from each other. I'm looking forward to working with each and every one of you to bring about the transformation that has been long awaited for the continent of Africa, what we call here in America the mother country.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I mean, I also follow that line because, again, thanks to clean energy, I see it's a great initiative, bringing minds and brilliant minds, together to discuss different topics. So that's really wonderful. And I've learned a lot, no doubt. Many of the areas I'm looking at, interestingly, the waste to wealth and the solar project which Regina is doing, I think that's our own next phase. So since she's already there, it's an opportunity to see a high flyer we can actually talk to. So perhaps that's why I didn't really ask much question, because again, it's it's an ongoing conversation. So thank you once again, Mohammed.
Thank you so much, Hafis and Regina as well. Thank you so much for the presentation, for the time you dedicated for this webinar. Really appreciate it, honestly. I know it was a bit tricky, difficult, the test call that we had for you guys to get used to the software and the time zone difference as well must have been quite difficult. So I really appreciate the time you dedicated and the presentation, the useful information that you provided for us in this webinar. It has been recorded. I'm just gonna edit the first parts, and inshallah it will be uploaded in our YouTube channel. So thank you so much again, and thank you for our attendees for attending this webinar. And hopefully we'll see you soon, hopefully within the next month or two in another webinar in clean energy. Thank you guys all, and have a good morning, good day, or good night, wherever part of the world you are. Take care, everyone.